What is going on, you beautiful bastards? I'm Brandon Sylvia. This is my channel. If you're new, consider subscribing. So we are going to be diving deep into Saints Row, the reboot today. Just finished it, put about 35, 40 hours into it, and have a lot of thoughts that range greatly. This was definitely an up and down experience, but we'll dive into that in a second here. I do want to say that I have been playing Timeisha. I have been playing Midnight Fight Express. I'm going to play Immortality soon. I finished up Rollerdrome, so I will be talking about all of those in a later video. But I want to dedicate this video to just Saints Row. I don't think I'm going to be doing that for many games, but for something like this, a franchise that I love so much, and you know, just one of my favorite gaming franchises ever. I feel like a lot of the discourse around this game doesn't come from the perspective of somebody who really has played and enjoyed a lot of the other Saints Row games, so I feel like I might offer a slightly different perspective there. And there's just, like I said, I have a lot of thoughts, so I'm just going to kind of go off the top of the head here and tell you guys how I feel about the game. So just quick, TLDR, if you want my baseline summary for Saints Row, I would say it's like it really feels so archaic in all of its design choices, in the fact that the thing that stands out so much is that we're in 2022 and somehow they didn't include a cover mechanic. Like, you can't take cover and shoot, which is pretty much across the board at this point, just in every open world game, every third person shooter style of game, that's just a standard mechanic. The fact that it wasn't here, that was the first thing that was like, oh man, there's really not much evolution taking place here with this game. It plays and feels a lot like Saints Row 3. Saints Row 3, when it came out in 2011 or whatever, felt and played better than most open world games. But in 2022, it just doesn't. You go back and play the remaster and you're like happy to be back in Saints Row 3, and you can look past a lot of those things, and they've tightened it up a little bit, but it still doesn't play like a modern open world game. And you feel that right off the bat with Saints Row the reboot. And it's tough to get past that. It's tough to get past that initial first impression where you're like, this just does not feel as good as the other games in the genre, or the other great games in the genre, so that immediately sets it back. Then you get to the shooting, and it's another step back. It's not horrible per se, but it's not great. It's the same kind of press L2, automatically lock on to your target, blast away, really like stiff or hard to maneuver the crosshairs to line up the precise shots that you're wanting. So you just kind of resort to, at least playing on the normal difficulty, resort to L2, hold R2, L2, hold R2. And so you're, holding L2 to lock on your aim and then just firing away. And it's frustrating from a gameplay perspective, for sure. But what I will say is that as a fan of that PS2 era open world, and as somebody who just personally enjoys that kind of checkbox format, if I'm having fun in the world, if I enjoy being in the world, like I like doing different missions and going around and seeing what I can get myself into and going off and exploring. I talked about it in that open world ranking video, but I really do love just running around and like I said, the mansion. I go and I see the mansion, I hop into the pool because I see the pool in the mansion, and I just go and look around to see if I can find anything at their house, and like that stuff just brings me joy in these style of open worlds. I've always enjoyed open world games like this so much, and I did really enjoy my time with Saints Row Reboot quite often. There were quite, like, out of the 35 hours, I would say I enjoyed probably 18 to 20, or maybe even 18 to 25 of those hours were spent, like, smiling as you're in a car chase and blowing up cars that are coming from behind you, and you blow up one, it ricochets into the other, it blows up four more, and you're just seeing this huge explosion happen all around you, and you can't help but have a stupid, giddy smile on your face. But does that discount from the fact that it's just an outdated game model? In pretty much every way, the design is just so outdated. It definitely doesn't discount that. So the people who are I've seen a lot of 6s and 7s given to Saints Row, and I think that's a fair score for the game. Like, I would be totally disingenuous if I came in here and said, just because I personally had fun with it, that I think it's a high quality open world experience. It's just not. It's just simply not. The main killer for me, and I know I'm talking a lot about the negatives off the bat, but like I said, it's a lot of different thoughts in my head, and just kind of wherever my thoughts go with this is going to be where we go with this. But the main killer for me was the fact that, and let me also say, I think coming off of it fresh, where I am right now, literally just like 20 minutes ago, I beat the game. And I started to get progressively more annoyed by the game as it went on. So I think I'm skewed negative right now, whereas if I would have came in 10 or so hours ago, like, in terms of game time, I probably would have been a lot hotter on it. So just kind of keep that in mind. But I will get to the things I really enjoyed about it in a second. But the business venture missions, those really left a lot to be desired with me, wherein you would go to these missions and there's so many of them on this empire map, to where you're building up your empire and you're placing these business ventures on the map, and they're generating income for you as you place them and as you finish all the quests in that mission line. And I finished, like, I think there's 14 of them. I think I finished like 11 of them or something like that. I finished damn near all of them. And I was constantly waiting for that moment where it's like that, oh shit, that really did pay off with a cool final objective, or oh, that really did pay off with some cool resolution in terms of story details or something. And it just didn't. And it's not to say that every single one of those venture or business venture missions are a copy paste of the last one, but there are a lot of just, okay, go here, shoot a bunch of people, leave, go there, shoot a bunch of people, leave. And when you have 14 different missions, and let's just say 8 of them are that format, just with a different little twist, like, yeah, that's going to be frustrating. Like, why not just put 7, 8 business ventures, cut it in half, and have all of them be a little bit different from one another? That way it begins to feel like you're just filling time for a game, because it's a big open world game, and people have a set expectation of how long it should take to get through it. And then you lock a lot of those missions behind like mandatory mandatory requirements to progress the story. It's like, okay, is that there because I need to do this for some big revelation, something cool is going to happen? Or is that there because you need me to do this for you to justify why I paid $70 for this game to get my hour count up? And lo and behold, not really many big revelations come. Unless you have to do all 14 of them. And then, like I said, it's not just 14 missions. It's 14 of these business ventures, and inside of each is, at the minimum, usually like 5-6 missions. So it adds up. to become a monotonous, repetitive cycle. But like I said, I like I like that older school PS2 open world style of game where I like going and just kind of completing random mission objectives here and there. I like turning on a podcast and just mindlessly playing some dumb fun with a game. And that's what Saints Row is going to give you. And like I said, I'm a lot cooler on some of those business ventures where it felt like I was doing a lot of the same thing over and over and over again. But you can find some in there that you really will enjoy, and it's going to depend upon your taste. But like I really enjoyed going and doing the I believe they're called Eurecubator missions, where you go and like you get a hoverboard from going and doing it. And you get the ability to like shoot through walls, and you can test out these different, gadgets as you're doing those missions. That was really freaking fun. And the mission where you're going and you are getting like it's not really anything all that revolutionary, but you are going and snapping photos for this lady who is like this fashion designer, and you're going and snapping photos for her, and she's using the photos that you're snapping for to create these outfits. And it's like kind of silly and fun going around and just snapping photos of the different scenery in the game. And you can do that to unlock like fast travel points. And even as I'm saying it, I'm sitting here and realizing like a lot of people are going to hear that and be like, that sounds incredibly repetitive. And it is. Like almost everything about this game is incredibly repetitive. But if you're into that, if you want to just kind of zone out, listen to a podcast, and mingle around the open world, you can have some fun with that stuff. There's one where you're like going and taking this repo truck to repossess a bunch of different items across the world. You're going and grabbing some fireworks and bringing them back, and like there are in those business venture missions, there are some fun things to get up to. Far and away the coolest, outside of the insurance fraud stuff. Like the insurance fraud is obviously back, and it's just as chaotic and insane and fun as it's ever been. You can chain together just ridiculous over the top combos and rack up a whole bunch of points, make a whole bunch of money pretty quickly. And those missions are still just as fun, or that business venture is still just as fun. But there's one called Castle Kraken, and it is this like live action role playing venture where you are going through, and the general setup of it is as simple as anything else in the game. You're going around shooting people to get to the next, to the next objective, or get to the next moment of the story. But the setup here is that it's this live action role playing thing where you are dressing up in this gear, and you got like fake guns. But my favorite little bit of it is it's like, these fortress battles where you're trying to overtake this fortress, and they have it to where like triangle is the move you use in the game, and it sets up this like string of combos of punches, or just different cool kind of like acrobatic takedowns where your player will perform like some cool moves and take out the enemy. With the live action role playing missions or business venture in specific, when you're doing those, your player, all the punches that he throws never lands with the enemy and stuff. So it's all like this professional wrestling sort of get up, because it's all live action role playing. Everyone's playing a game together, but it's taken so seriously, and the payoff of that one is so next level. And I was just very, very surprised by how well done that venture was in comparison to most of the other ones. Most of the other ones, when you finish it, you get back and it's just like nothing. It shows you that you're generating some stream of income from having that, from having completed the entire list of objectives for that specific, business venture. But there's no real big story payoff. It's so anticlimactic with almost every single one of them, or at least the ones I have done so far. There's still a couple that I haven't finished, but from the ones I've done so far, most of them are so just, the payoff just doesn't feel really worth it, and you spend a lot of time doing them. It's not like it's definitely a real time commitment, and there's some that just are so goddamn boring, like the toxic waste delivery business missions suck so bad. You just go and pick up these trucks that are full of toxic waste, and you just have to drive carefully to bring it back to this toxic waste plant, and you have like this toxic waste dump, and that's all you do. You just drive these big trucks carefully back to your dump site, and that's it. That's what you do for every single one of those missions, and I completed the entire line of those toxic waste delivery missions. It never gets fun at all. If you just drive slow, the thing won't blow up. But I guess that does kind of tie in directly to like the thing that bothered me the most, or with the discourse around Saints Row, was that the people who were like the most outright hateful or spiteful towards this game, they, for one, they were never going to play it anyway. And this whole idea that Saints Row the Reboot is woke is really bizarre to me. And it's bizarre for a number of different reasons. It's bizarre for, it was like declared this before it was ever released, and the people who are making these the people who are trying to claim that it's woke are never really have any intention on playing the game, and so they'll never really know anyway. And then when I play the game, I see all these things like the toxic waste plant, and it's totally the opposite of what you would call woke. It's a reverse criticism in a lot of ways of the idea of like, we will do anything if the price is right. Like I mean, if you're talking about harming the environment for profit, like that's literally a business venture that you get involved in. And I mean, and there's so many other examples of like the Idols. It's a group in the game where they'll take a selfie before battling you and say something like "join the revolution" while they're taking a selfie. And it's like, guys, how well, I know how you can't see that that's a criticism of the quote unquote woke, and I hate even using those terms. It just feels gross, and it feels intellectually dishonest to stoop to those levels, to like, it's just gross. It feels gross. But that is an obvious criticism of people who are willing to show up at protests just so they can take a photo and get their shine time, off the backs of a horrible tragedy or whatever the case may be, and then trying to turn it and make it all about these are obvious criticisms that the game is trying to make, and they're doing it, fairly late. There's nothing subtle about it. I mean, literally at the beginning of the game, the game opens up where one of the characters, you're going to rob somebody, and one of the characters, Eli, says that you should take an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle to go rob somebody. And it's like, obviously, a comment, some form of criticism on the pseudo-moralism that you see, just immense, just tons of pseudo-moralism through, the hardcore social activists on Twitter, as they're telling you, don't you go and let's just use a simple example. Don't you go and buy Hogwarts Legacy while they use their iPhone. Or, you know what I mean? There's so many examples of this, and they're absolutely taking little jabs at that stuff. But it was declared woke from the moment go, and the writing never got a chance to, persuade people differently. And it's not like a right-wing lunatic sort of game either. It's just, they're just making like little subtle commentary, subtle social commentary. It's not anything overly pervasive. It's not anything overly offensive. It's just little subtle jabs here and there at everybody. It's gonna jab a little bit at both sides, and that's fine. Like, I feel like that's kind of what Saints Row has always done. It's never been a political satire or even societal satire on the level of Grand Theft Auto or on the level of a lot of different games out there. It's never been about that. It's always been about zaniness, and when you go back to the roots of like 1 and 2, it's been about a lot more like gritty sort of gang related drama. And yeah, I really find that conversation, and it's you're never going to change the opinion of people who have made their opinion before they'll ever give something a shot. But yeah, it's not an annoying game that's trying to tell you the faults of your ways at all. It's telling a little story about a small criminal startup who are very flawed individuals. Each and every single one of them are very flawed individuals, and they are trying to do a whole bunch of fucked up shit to get rich. Like, that's the direct antithesis of what most people would consider woke. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely, the element of like, we're going to stick it to the man and that type of shit. But that's more of a 70s hippie vibe than anything else, really. So yeah, I mean, the characters it's a lot more tech based, a little bit more tech based, I should say. Like, Eli is very much like the brains of the operation, and he is more involved with the tech side of things. And then Nina is involved with the Panteros, who is a rival gang at the beginning of the game and then throughout most of the game. And she is involved with them, and so it's a story about her having to obviously flee that gang when shit hits the fan, and she's like really passionate about her vehicle and working on her car. And like, then you have Kevin, who was a part of the Idols, the group we were talking about earlier, the Join the Revolution with the selfie group, and he's like a shirt off kind of DJ, sort of just a wild party dude. And all the characters are charming in their own way. I'm not saying at all in the slightest that they're any way or shape or form comparable to Johnny Gat or to even like Shondi or Dex or Kinsey or Pierce or any of those characters. Like, they don't stack up in any way, shape, or form anywhere near those characters. And a lot of it is due to it's a lot more toned down. It is a lot more toned down. I'll totally admit that the humor does not hit nearly as much as it does in the original games. Like, there is none of that kind of, I mean, there's definitely over the top humor, but it's I don't even know the right way of putting it. It's not that same level. It doesn't have any sort of bite to it. It doesn't have any sort of edge to it, and it falls flat. The humor does typically fall flat. There are a couple times, you'll get a good laugh just out of the absurdity of what's going on the screen, but none of the characters are nearly as well written or well thought out as previous Saints Row games. I'll totally admit that. There's moments where they use like kind of cheap tricks to get you to buy into a character arc a little bit more. Talking about someone close to them passing away and an item gets destroyed, and it all ties back together, but there was really no build up to the character, but you're trying to trick me into caring about this character that you never really shaped in any meaningful way before that. And it's like, I kind of see what you're doing there. I mean, I get it. Yeah, but I see the you're trying to pull the wool there, and then, I'll let you because I just like Saints Row so much, and I want to like this damn thing, and I want to get connected to these characters, so I'm buying in at anything. But I will say the story, when it reaches its finality, when it really comes to the end, it's a big moment. It feels important. It feels special, but throughout, like in terms of mission design, level design, and the importance of that, there's nothing there at all that ever hits in any special, that really resonates with you, like the Kanye mission. And I know that's the one that everyone refers to, but everyone refers to that one for a damn good reason. When you're going in guns blazing to power after you just parachute down, like that is so goddamn epic. And there's nothing that hits on that level throughout the entirety of the game. There's one really cool train mission that has a bunch of fun little different setups, and outside of that, like, they try to do big spectacle things by introducing new vehicles for you to commandeer, new, they try to give you enough diversity with, like, the main missions to where you're using different vehicles, you're trying out different tools, you're like, they try to spice it up there, but the real epic feeling, and they do go for those moments where, like, they'll toss in Annie Up, and you're jamming out to Annie Up as you're trying to get through this mission, and you feel shades of it, of that Kanye power mission, but it feels like, I don't know, I don't mean to sound over dramatic here, but it feels like, a star kind of dying out, and like trying to grasp on to the remnants of the light that is still left within that star power, and it's just not there the same way, and it's unfortunate. It feels bad. And the main thing that is weird to me, though, and I know that patches get thrown out, and by the time I played the game, it was probably completely patched up, and I wasn't having to go through a lot of the shit that the reviewers were going through initially. But I'm not gonna lie, I was worried whenever I first saw the reviews and people were saying it's Cyberpunk level buggy. I was like, no, man, because that's the thing I can't fucking forgive, because that's inexcusable. When that is straight up lying to your consumer base. If you put something out and it's just not good, okay, is what it is, right? But if you put something out there and it's literally unfinished or broken, I can't really excuse that. Like, I'll never be able to look at CD Projekt Red the same way again. I'll never be able to look at their games on day one and go, that's a for sure buy. And so going into this, I had my guard up. I was ready for those bugs, and they just never really came. Like, little bugs came, little bugs that you would expect in a Grand Theft Auto game. Maybe not in a Grand Theft Auto game, but little open world bugs that you would expect from a lot of games. Like dumb AI, you're shooting at an enemy and they're just standing still. You're blasting away, they're just standing still. And, hit detection being off a little bit. The lip sync is almost always off a little bit. Like, if you come off of playing Horizon Forbidden West and you jump into Saints Row, it's jarring, because this doesn't just play and feel like a PS3, PS2 era game. It looks like a PS3 era game. It really does look a lot like, Saints Row the Third remastered. And in a lot of ways, the game just almost functions very similar to Saints Row the Third remastered. I imagine there's a lot of reusing of assets going into this project, which hey, you got to get your game out. And I do think if they, like, I can look over all of those things, all of the little minor bugs that I experienced were never anything overbearing. I never had anything that was close to game breaking. I never had to reload a save file, not once. The game did crash on me one time, but just booted right back up. I had an autosave, no problem whatsoever. The checkpoint system is really, really, really bad, like really, really bad. But other than that, I never had any kind of bug that would deter me from jumping back into this game. I was constantly, progressing at a normal level, and I never really had any issues with any of that. Like, the game is fairly standard, fairly easy to get through, and that can be a little bit redundant and boring, like we were talking about. But in terms of bugs, I just did not experience them at all. And like I said, I keep on having that thing updated, so I'm running on whatever fourth patch that they're on at this point. But even when I first booted it up, like, I don't know if the PS5 version is, a better version in terms of bugs. I have no idea. But I just did not experience them on that level. Like I said, it visually it is not great, and there are wonky things, like even just visuals in the world that are wonky as you're driving around and you're going through the world, and the lighting is so off and so weird, and drowns out the entire visuals of the world. Like the street lights become so overbearing, and it muddies up the world. It just looks foggy, and not like in any sort of cool visual effect, and it adds anything or nothing. It just looks weird and muddy. And even like as you're flying, like you will see the pop-ins and things like that. The technical, you can definitely say that there are technical issues with the game. I'd for sure be the first to admit that. Like, you will see the pop-ins. It's pop-in galore. But and yeah, to be fair, that would count for some variation of a bug, I guess, or at least an oversight in development. But in terms of, like, when I was hearing people say Cyberpunk level buggy, I was going in really, really guarded, really expecting to just be super disappointed in that aspect. So maybe I went in with too low of expectations, or expecting too many bugs and glitches, and so I was just surprised to not get that many. And so I just overlooked them for that reason, just based off of expectations. I don't know, but I never had anything like Cyberpunk. Just to be clear, when I go in hearing Cyberpunk level bugs and glitches, Cyberpunk crashed on me 20-ish times. Saints Row crashed on me one time. Cyberpunk, I was like saved out of missions multiple times. Never in Saints Row. Tons more problems that pop in and shit like that in Cyberpunk. I mean, it's not even comparable. Cyberpunk was so much worse than Saints Row. Granted, Cyberpunk has a good story, a captivating ass story, a fun role-playing experience, but it's a lot, in my experience, a lot worse technically than Saints Row, at least in terms of real bugs and real, technical issues on that level that can break your game experience. And obviously with Saints Row, the customization is still at 11. It's still incredibly fun to customize your character. In this one now, you can go straight from the app in your phone to customize your character, change any sort of appearance you want to change on your character on the fly at any time. No need to go back into the shops and swap through different clothing. And I always, with my character, try to make that motherfucker look like what I wish I could look like if I would get on a damn diet and get my ass back into the gym and maybe have some genetic altering treatments. But it's always fun to create that ideal version of you with the six pack and the cool hair and the cool glasses and the cool shoes and shit. I love doing that, and I'll always love doing that in every game. It's just, it's that role-playing experience. It's that you're playing who you want to be, or at least that's how I do it. Unfortunately, though, talking about the open world and talking about how, you go into the app to detail your character better, I think a lot of that is due to, like, you remember in the other Saints Row games, rather you were going into Stillwater, or if you were going into Steelport, it was littered. Both locations were littered with, cool ass shops you could go into, and they all had like an interesting interior design that you could go and kind of explore around. And then, there was some unique diversity there with the tattoo shops, or with like the plastic surgeon, and these different set pieces, or these different just places that gave the city some flavor. And with this reboot, almost a lot of that shit is just outdoors. You're going to like outdoor vendors, and it really removes a lot of that interior flavoring that you got from the other games. And it's just an unfortunate omission, and I think a lot of it probably was due to maybe budgetary restrictions, which is wild with this being an Embracer game and them throwing money at everything. It's like, how are some of the main open world features that are found in all the other Saints Row games not in this one, whenever this is like really the first brand new game where Saints Row should have more money backing it. It's quite the head scratcher. But getting back into the missions and side content for the game, outside of those business ventures, you do have your just kind of standard side quests or little options that are on the map, or I guess little objectives that are on the map, like going in dumpster diving and going and finding drug stashes that are, or drug piles that are across the world. They'll pop up on your map and you go try to find them, and like you'll be driving around and this mystery box will pop up and you try to explore everything in this certain circumference to find the little, I don't even know what you would call it, I guess the little hidden items that will tell you a slight story about that particular part of the world. And little things like that are cool. I talked earlier about going and taking the photos for the fast travel points, and like, okay, but outside of that, like there are actual real side quests that you get set up with. Like there's a mission called the Wingsuit Saboteur, where you are using your wingsuit to blow up these satellite things. And it's repetitive, I would say, but it's at least fun because you're using the wingsuit. And there's one similar that's called Choplifting, where you're using a helicopter to steal cargo, and it's fairly difficult to when you first boot it up to get the hang on that, but it's at least giving you something different to do. And then conversely, you have side quests like Atcha, and this is one of the most just unbelievably simplistic, just boring ass side activities. You go and you leave a review for a business, and the worse review you leave, the more heavy the onslaught of enemy attacks you get thrown your way. So you leave the bad review, and then a bunch of like martial troops, and I didn't even talk about the different factions, but it really doesn't matter all that much. But a bunch of different enemy factions will come at you, and you have to take them all out, and they just come in droves, and you're just taking them out, and nothing really happens. Just kind of standard running around shooting, getting cover, running around shooting, getting cover manually, might I add. Like there's not even a mechanic there that you can use that does that for you or is in any way satisfying to use. It's just you press down on the damn D-pad and get cover, and that's how you get cover in the game. It sucks. But as far as villains in the reboot, it's not. There is one really, really, really great villain that I won't spoil because it's very spoilery, but his arc, his villain arc is great, and how it's done, I do think they really nailed that. But outside of him, like, there is a couple different factions who have their leaders. It's similar to a lot of the other Saints Row games. The faction with a leader, you fight the gang, you kill the leader. Like, this isn't something new, but the leader of Marshall, I would say their story ends in the most interesting way out of all the different factions. But it like I said, it's not on the level of Killbane in 3 or Vogel in 2. Like, none of the highs hit quite those highs from other games. But it's not to say that I do think the story was probably my favorite part overall of the game, whenever it was actually like telling the story. And through the cinematics were actually really good. The cinematics were solid, other than, like I said, the out of sync with the lip syncing and all that. But outside of that, the cinematics looked decently well and told a solid story throughout the cinematics. And just in general, I thought the story was okay. The writing wasn't on par with some of the other Saints Row games, especially not the humor, but the actual the more grounded parts of the story, and even some of the more over the top moments, I thought were done well. In particular, like I said, the ending and the end of the segment with Marshall. Won't get into any spoilers there, but both of those two things were executed greatly. And there are also a couple moments in the story where your expectations are subverted greatly, because the thing that would usually happen in Saints Row games doesn't happen, and the way that it won't happen is cool to see play out. That's about as damn vague a description as possible, but if I said it, it would really give away some cool shit in the game that doesn't come all that often in the game. So for any of you out there who are Saints Row fans and want to go into this game and want to, go into it with no real expectations, or go into it without the preconceived thoughts or ideas of how bad the game is going to be. Like, I know there's people out there similar to me who just like Saints Row as a series, like Volition as a dev team, and wanted to just, they weren't going to miss the game, period. I know there's got to be people out there who are in a similar boat, and for those people, I would say this isn't a $70 game. I jumped in at $70. I don't feel burnt or anything, just because, like I said, it feels archaic in its design. Thankfully for them, or well, they don't care. They already got my money. But thankfully for the way I perceive the game, is that I like a lot of that archaic design, just because I'm from that era. Like, I played everything. I went to Blockbuster, and the only shit I wanted to play was either survival horror or freaking open world games, or like, NBA Live 2005, so open world games are a core part of what made me love gaming, with starting at GTA 3. And just being totally honest, a lot of this shit does feel like Grand Theft Auto, early PS2 Grand Theft Auto fetch quest stuff. Like, it doesn't get much more fetch questy and go here, do this, go here, do this. We're not going to add anything really interesting for you to play around with or experiment with until they do. Like I said, with the Eureka Baiter, or whatever the hell that business venture is called, little itty bits like that give you cool things, and you can like use they give you a football that you can throw at enemies, and it's like a grenade that blows up on the enemies, but it's like you throw a grenade essentially, but it has I guess physics built in place to where when you throw it, it attaches to the enemy. And so when you can like throw it at a vehicle too, and the vehicle will go flying and ricocheting off a bunch of shit, wrecking into things, and you can cause these big explosions. And then they have like a hoverboard that you can use. And I'm a sucker for that shit. I'm a sucker for getting this old dilapidated church, building it back up to prominence, and then getting to look at your work as it's got this more modern design to it, and then you're like, damn, this is cool. I got my gang out here, we got our cars, we got our helipad, we got our damn, we got our dock or whatever where we keep our boats and our jet skis, and like, it's just, this shit appeals to the kid in me who loves those open world games. I do wish though that with those business ventures that there was some way to have a more semi element in there, where it's like, you know what, we're gonna try to tinker with this a little bit, and maybe it can increase the heat, and then we can get into some more crime shit can happen, some more big drama moments can happen, because I'm pushing it a little bit too far. Or like with The Godfather and PS2, you're going and roughing up the business owners and increasing the amount of money you get and shit. Like, little things like that I think could have went a long way. But I can't say I had a horrible time with this game. I'd be lying to you if I said I just hated the game. I do not hate the game. I did not hate the game. But a lot of it is due to just how I am as a gamer, who I am as a gamer. And if you grew up with that PS2 era of open world style of games, and you're okay with that archaic design, and you're cool with just tuning out, listening to a podcast, and doing some fetch questing in a kind of zany open world where you can create and customize your character, and then go and find collectibles out in the open world and bring it back to your mansion and set up decorations and shit. Like, I think you can have fun with this. Like I said, it's already, I was checking eBay, I saw some Saints Row copies on there for like $45. Just give it a little bit, grab the thing at a discount, unless you're just a maniac like me, and you really love Saints Row and you wanted to see what the latest from Saints Row looks like. Doesn't look great. It doesn't look great. I hope this franchise lives on forever, I'm going to be the idiot that supports it going forward, no matter what, most likely. But I wouldn't also be disappointed to see Saints Row just kind of, peter off for a minute and let Volition kind of go back and build something from the ground up to rediscover what makes them tick and what makes them great, and do something that really resonates with people, because it just doesn't seem like Saints Row is resonating with people. And I don't think reviewers were wrong for criticizing this game in the way that they did criticize the game. I definitely don't think. Where is it at on Metacritic? Let's take a look. Okay, yeah, for PS5 it's sitting at a 63. On PC and Series X it's sitting at a 66. So yeah, kind of the same, mid 60s across the board. I don't think I would be honestly all that much different. I think I probably would be about it if I was just throwing a score on it, probably like a 68 to 72 ish range. A D plus C minus range is probably where I would be, which is unfortunate because I don't think any of the other Saints Row games outside of, I think I like this more than 4 overall. Yeah, I probably do like this more than 4, I would say. And it's up there with 1. 1 wasn't. 2 is really where it clicked for me. 2 and 3, I loved 2 and 3. But I like the whole franchise. And even when I can this is me saying I would objectively say it's like a 68 to 72. My personal enjoyment for the franchise is, a lot higher than that. Like, I don't know how to score personal enjoyment. It's kind of difficult to put a score on personal enjoyment. If I didn't personally enjoy it, I wouldn't have sat through 40 hours of it. So that has to be counted in somewhere there. I can objectively go, okay, that's not great, and still somehow find a way to enjoy it. And I was like that a lot with 4, a lot like that with 1 as well. And yeah, but it's not hitting the highs of 2 and 3, but not even close. I think 3 was like a masterpiece in open world game design at that point, and even 2 in a lot of ways was similar. So yeah, it doesn't do it on that level, but I wouldn't say it's a horrible game. Like, I've seen people saying that this is just like the worst thing ever. I totally disagree with that. There's a lot of dumb fun that you can have in this game, and there's a lot of games that don't even give you that. So that's sort of my long-winded ramble on Saints Row the Reboot. If you have played it, if you're one of the dinosaurs out there who still love this franchise, let me know what your thoughts on Saints Row the Reboot were down below in the comments. And yeah, man, if you plan on picking it up, let me know. If you whatever, shoot the breeze with me in the comments. I always appreciate hearing what you guys have to say. So yeah, look forward to shooting the breeze with you, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.